Hi, how you doing? I nearly got scammed out of $600 a couple days ago. That was not good. Yeah, everything I predicted on a few different fronts back in 2019 is coming true. I wanted to talk about a few things. I have this in two parts. I wanted to talk about some of the flakiness that's, I do read every comment, and a lot of you have confirmed that when I was asking about that a few weeks ago. Flakiness going on with people. What's the best possible course of action on that front? And there's no perfect answer, unfortunately. I've thought about that myself. People that I've come to rely upon, very, very few people. I'm completely independent. I mean, I really am. I do everything myself, but rely on a few people, and they've become completely, utterly, and absolutely unreliable. I don't know if it's because of the V, but I'll let you take a guess on that. So here's what's going to happen, and this is divided into two sections, because people are getting really, really flaky. And a lot of these people, actually an enormous amount of people, especially Western society, are completely isolated. We have a lot of pseudo-intellectuals and college academicians and people that have been huffing the essence of academia. And I spent many years in college myself, two different colleges, in fact. These pseudo-intellectuals, and actually I had an occurrence, and I had my buddy with me. This is the one time I didn't bring my pocket recorder with me. It's gotten to the point now where people have become so adversarial. It reminds me of a zombie movie, except they're not really zombies, but really they kind of are. I mean, I kind of mean that literally. My buddy was witness to it, and I had four people. I was in the right. Everything I had an issue with was in the right, but just nobody wants to work anymore. Things have gotten really, really bad, and I should have called management and reported them, but I have a thing where I don't let people get away with things that I would have been fired for in a heartbeat. I mean, they would have fired me in a heartbeat if I did stuff like that to customers. Now it is absolutely everywhere. Like endless thousands of you have confirmed that that is the case. They were saying stuff to me like, "I'm not going to argue with you." And when people say that, by the way, it means that, yeah, you're not going to argue with me. It's a debate, actually. Westerners, and especially Americans, are heinously ignorant and confusing argumentation with debates. Like, you're not going to have a debate with me because you have no standing. You have no standing at all. I'm standing in the facts, logic, and you have none. Well, I'm not going to argue with you. No, debate is not to be confused with an argument. People have gotten really, really, really bad. There's a whole lot of what we call sophistry going on. People get offended when you ask them a question. These people have a demon mind, and you almost have to treat them kind of like a zombie movie where everybody's dodging the zombies. When people are allergic to the truth, you really need to shun them. Call them out and shun them. If you ever meet them, don't give them the time of day. I hate to say that. Of course, it's your own decision what to do, but I've chosen to do that. Relativism has gone completely off the hook. It was bad before all this started going on in 2019. Now it's really bad. Everybody, and I say this humorously, but it is extremely true, people are living in a nutshell and they're sniffing their own flatulence. I know that kind of sounds humorous, but it is true. People are completely detached from reality and how the world works. And I don't mean like the new reality which we have now, but I mean just in general, they are. They're isolated from reality and how the world works. There are people out there that, it reminds me of one thing I saw many years ago where this lady literally married a roller coaster. She bought like a circus ride. It was a roller coaster and she married it. I'm not picking on that particular person, but I mean, there's just so much of this nonsense going on where people are, you think, back in the day when I had so many tattoos, and I mean, I've got a lot of tattoos. I mean, I'm like 95% covered. The tattooed circus freak, right? Meaning me. Now, I'm the is super serious normal, like when I go to the grocery store. And by the way, this is not like Oregon or Portland, Oregon here in Lexington, Kentucky. This is Lexington, Kentucky. Portland, Oregon. See, Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, or, Berkeley. This is Kentucky. I'm the super, super normal one when I go to the grocery store. I mean, talk about an indicator. People are so isolated from reality. They've amplified their belief systems, and what it is a defense mode. People are afraid, they get angry, and they lash out. The people that are weaker, who are afraid, the one side that has some strength, they lash out because they're afraid. The other side that's afraid, what they do is they curl up into their own little nutshell, which they were before. Now it's even tighter of a nutshell, and they're really huffing their own essence, which is not good. And, they've invented a fantasy land, like something out of a cartoon. I mean, literally out of a cartoon. I never thought I'd reach this point. I'm 51 years old. It's gotten really, really bad. People are in love with lies. It's gotten to the point now where, and I've talked about this before, you carry a little personal recorder. People have become like zombies. You can't interact with them, just like normal business. You can't say hello to somebody without them having a crazy reaction. I mean, you can, but I mean, it's gotten really bad. So you and I and everybody else that are sensible, we need to have a small community of reliable people, family, contacts. People are getting so super flaky. I'd love to read your comments on this too. You know what's going on. People, by the way, are robbing. I had an attempt where I got scammed out of $600 a few days ago. I know how to fix anything basically, and I fixed that. The robbing, and I predicted this years ago, this would happen when all the nuttiness started happening. People are scamming and robbing, and it's gotten off the hook, even in places like this. And I talked to a lot of retailers. Just out of the blue, it's like, hey, just tell me. I'll talk to store security. Like, how bad has it gotten, over the past few years, just the past few months? And it got really bad starting somewhere in late 2019, which we all know what the reason for that was. People started getting flaky and nutty. But it's gotten really bad. Here's what's going to happen, and this is the second portion of this video, the primary portion of this video. But I just had to talk about this. People, living in a tight little nutshell, living in a cartoon fantasy land. And that's the other half of people being afraid. You either get angry, which is a defense mode, or people clam up and they, retreat to a fantasy land. That's the other mode. And I understand why they're doing that. It's wrong, but I don't tell anybody else what to do. By the way, in this conflict, they're about to roll heavy. They've been given orders, like the 24-hour basic heads up to roll heavy. There's a lot of things that actually can spiral out of control. When this happens, that happens. A chain of events can happen. And as someone who lived in Russia for years, and I've seen Russia do this many times, like when there's something serious, the whole world's focused on a major event, Russia does something major. And the other company, basically it is a country to the east of there with a big C, they have been famous for doing the same thing. They kind of copy each other on that front. So when things spiral out of control, and it appears that they are, some of the finest minds actually state it will. And I have to say this as an aside, humanity by and large is extremely, right off the hook, extremely ignorant of how quickly things can turn on a dime. Just everything that you took for granted, I can get gas and groceries and rice and water, you cannot believe how quickly things can turn on a dime. Literally within 24 hours, actually far less than 24 hours. Like, well, it doesn't affect me, it's thousands of miles away on the other side of the earth. By the way, I'm going to troll some flurfers. By the way, this is really, you see the spherical earth back there? I found out, someone bought this for me. This is kind of a humor point in this video. Someone sent me this tiny little globe, and some of the flurfers, it's really, it's upset them. It just sits there quietly, subliminally in the background. But people think, sorry about that, I just find that, so I have a good sense of humor, and I don't trust anybody that doesn't have a sense of humor. The people think this on the other side of the earth, it's not going to affect them. Oh, how wrong you are. There's things that I've watched in just the past 72 hours that have gotten completely spiraled out of control, and they continue to spiral out of control. I talked about that in the prior video. And sorry I've been so busy the past few days that I haven't made a video, but I've literally been that busy. I was also trying to recoup the $600 that got scammed off of me, essentially, and to recoup that, and that was a very minor ordeal. But what will happen is gas will skyrocket, certain supply lines will vastly tighten and shorten, and we experienced this in 2019, but it was false. It was a synthetic supply line shortage because, oh, you can't let the ships in because of this regulation and that regulation, but this will actually be genuine supply line tightening issues. Consumer spending will fall off a cliff for general items that you don't need, kind of like doilies and computers and other electronic garbage, yet will skyrocket and vanish for things that people consider to be necessities. Necessities, of course, for survival. People right now are quiet quitting, even worse than they were in 2020 and 2021. I've really experienced this, and many thousands, literally thousands of you, since I read every comment, have reported me that this is the case. They realize that working for others is a dark, bottomless pit of despair. Quality control and customer service right now, and this sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. Quality control and customer service across the spectrum. And I've talked to a lot of people, and I've listened to you as well. Thousands of you. It's gotten so bad that you have to get to the point of you can't even bribe somebody to do their job. Before, like if I did something, they'd fire me. Now people are allowed to stay. They don't want to work. By the way, I found this out from Canada, which has gotten way worse than the United States. And UK is that 51% of Canadians are $200 or less away from total insolvency. I've seen also, too, that there's a homelessness crisis that is looming like a gigantic tornado, a hurricane actually, not a tornado, in Australia. My buddies in Australia tell me about the homelessness issue in Australia and how things are getting really, really bad. It's also, too, very bad in Canada. The same is true here in the United States. I've told people a way around it, but nobody seems to listen. A few of you had. You can get land relatively cheap for $1,000 an acre. I look every day, and you can get land for $1,000 an acre. You plop a little... My doctor, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned this, as if you're talking to me right now. It just popped into my head. My doctor, who has a farm, a 40-acre farm south of here near London, Kentucky, she bought a tiny home at a auction. It's a government auction. She got it for $1,000. Actually, I think it was like $1,071. And the cheapest delivery we could find for her is $1,500. So $2,500 delivered. It already has roughed-in plumbing. And even though it's small, it is cute and it is well made. Let me repeat to you what my doctor got for her farm. Because right now they're living in this double-walled Kwanzaa hut thing, which is really nice, but I mean, you know, it's not hard shelter. $2,500 delivered for a tiny home. So think about that next time when you start looking at home price. Like I can live like a king or a queen on the outskirts or outside of the city. Get myself a tiny home or an Amish-built cabin. Buy some land at $1,000 an acre. You can get plenty of land in Kentucky for $1,000 an acre. I see it every day, including today. But buying a home has become an absolute impossibility for most people. And that is the spinal cord of the American dream, and that's also, too, part of this quiet quitting. And all of this, I hate to say this, but many of you say it, and it's 100% true, is part of the plan. 51% of Canadians are $200 or less away from total insolvency. Can you believe that? I can believe it, and that's really horrible. Yeah, you have to bribe people to get them to do their job now. Quality control and customer service, you can't get anybody to do their job anymore. It's bad. Buy only what you need. This is a little life hack, and there's a lot of these. I'd like to talk about this in the next day or so. And this is something that's really saved me a lot of money and life and time, because time is money. Buy something you know that's going to last. Buy one that you know that's going to last your whole lifetime. I use one spoon and one fork. Too much, right? Because I'm fat, right? Made out of titanium. That's all I have. That's all I'll need for the rest of my life. I don't lose things. Some people lose stuff all the time. Key items are going to vanish. If this kicks off and the conflict that's about to spiral out of control, lead to a chain of causation on multiple fronts, and once again, the best minds on earth, no media-based, fear-based nonsense. A leads to B, B leads to C. Multiple front issues, I'm going to use the word issue, that's about to kick off here. People will realize that society is the thinnest crust over the largest volcano on Earth. They will realize that, and they'll regret it. Key cities keep falling apart. They will fall apart at faster speeds than places like where I'm at. However, this is a college town. It'll fall apart pretty fast. But I have methods of retreat, and redundancy is God, by the way. Where it will accelerate very quickly are key cities in California, Oregon, like Beaverton and Portland and Seattle, Chicago, Miami, New York, key cities in New Jersey, Detroit, Pittsburgh. These are cities that are upside down and have been for many countless years, but they've become absolute tyrannical places that no person in their right mind would want to live. They just would not want to live there. Humanity runs in cycles, and the only good side of this news and what's going on and what's about to go down is that people will be forced out of their nutshell and forced to stop sniffing their own flatulence, so to say. They're living in a fantasy land. Like My Little Pony. Remember that cartoon? I didn't watch that, by the way. My Little Pony. They're just living in a fantasy land. The guy that used to be considered, not that I ever was. I don't drink or, I never did anything. No arrests. I haven't even had a speeding ticket in 20 years. But, I know what I look like. People are like, oh my God, that guy's got a lot of tattoos. What a circus. I am the super, super normal one. Any place I go now, because everybody is in fear mode. Like I said, people handle fear two different ways. And fear is the enemy to insight and wisdom. Being prepared is the opposite of fear. I always am extremely ticked off when I hear someone say, oh, you're a prepper, you're living in fear. Now, that's the opposite of fear. People that live in fear that have a spine, they become angry, and the ones that don't have a spine retreat into their nutshell. And they build up this psychological, emotional wall of defense so that they can cope with daily life, because they know what's going on, but they won't admit it, and they're just like living in My Little Pony land or Smurf land or whatever sort of fantasy land they want to live in. So people will be forced out of their nutshell when this all goes down, and people will see how the world really works. This is a reason why nobody should ever, ever, ever be elected that hasn't served like a minimum of 4 years in the military. Anybody that's like seen the nitty-gritty of this world, served 4 years of service, hopefully some of that active, they know the way world works. They're not living in a fantasy land that's detached from reality. The cycle that this world runs into, it always repeats itself. It always has. It always will. It goes from rot to human ignorance and isolation to hardcore evil, and then to people that are power mad, and then chaos and bedlam, and then out of those ashes we have calm and peace and prosperity, and then it goes right back again to rot, human ignorance, conflation, aggrandizement of belief systems, people that are living back in their nutshell again, totally isolated from the rest of the world. They're power mad, and they have no way the world works. Yet they want power and they dictate, their own issues upon the subservience of others, and it ends up wrecking everybody's life, and everybody gets angry, and the whole world goes into chaos again, and the rise of evil, the rise of the power mad, on and on and on. It's always done that, and it always will do that. We're right now on the cusp of between power mad and chaos. We're right now between the power mad and the enormous amount of people that are living in a nutshell, sniffing their own, huffing their own essence. We're right between that and chaos. We're edging closer and closer to chaos. The cycles are amazing. The ancients talked about this. The cycles. What's that? There's another saying for it too. Like good times lead to lazy men, and lazy men lead to hard times, and hard times lead to good men, and good men lead to prosperity, and prosperity leads to soft, fat men, which I look like, of course, right? It's just an endless cycle of the exact same thing. Unfortunately, you and I right now, in late October of 2023, we're right between power mad and chaos, but very, very close to chaos. And it always plays out the same way. Always has, always will. You're not going to change it. I'm not going to change it. The way you deal with it is you keep doing what you're doing. The world needs to be seen just like children. Seen but not heard, right? You always have your one eye on them, but you're not listening to it. When you listen to it, the little kids will brainwash you. They'll brainwash you into buying cupcakes and ice cream bars. And I don't know of any good parent that would ever do that. It's like, no, little Johnny, you need to eat your vegetables. I don't want to eat vegetables. I want ice cream. I want ice cream and cupcakes. When you listen to it and it brainwashes you, then you end up in a spiral, a spiral that leads to Hades. So you have your eye out for it, but you lead your life, and you shelter the storm, because the storm is, I hate to say that, but I don't want that to happen. But it is. It's going to happen. And we appear to be on the edge of it right. This is very, very close to spiraling out of control. And when that happens, I just hope you realize, because most people don't realize, how quickly everything turns on a dime. So quickly. When you have other options, redundancy is God, not literally, but it's just a saying I have, because it's true. Redundancy is God. You have to have other options and redundancies. If this happens, what can I do? The worst thing you could do is like, oh my God, this happened and I'm totally unprepared for it. Oh no, what do I do? That's what you don't want. That is actual real fear. It's verifiable fear. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm in a bad situation and I have no redundancy or protocol for dealing with this situation. Most people live like that, unfortunately. Chance favors the prepared mind, and people that are unprepared for contingencies have not spent the necessary amount of time thinking about redundancies and contingencies and protocols and making plans for, if this happens, what am I going to do? If this happens, what am I going to do? Anyway, tell me what you think, and I'm sorry I've been so radically busy this week. Have a lovely week.